Because sometimes we have subconsciously stored baggage from previous experiences, and then we find out that it's impacting our future actions and why we're gaining or losing weight drastically. And I think that it's wise for us to be able to ask those questions. So don't be afraid to ask yourself, what's really the motive why you've gained or lost weight? You might discover something pretty profound about yourself. And usually the ones that bring a tear of gratitude are the ones that are the big ones.
This is how we begin to heal others. This is how we prevent trauma from being passed down from generation to generation.
Can't help it that I want to have a pound of M&Ms and drink like a fish.
You know, people think, well, I can't control myself or I can't do this. Yeah, you can. You do have it. You have when you're in the executive center, you have the power to govern the amygdala. And the amygdala is the thing where it's overeating and undereating is coming from, the amygdala. It's your animal brain down below, not your executive function above.
Well, I think that's the difference between being reactive and proactive and being a victim and being more than a conqueror. I think that's the difference, is that people can use that as a way to distract and numb themselves. Absolutely. That's victimhood in all levels, right? But I think that other people can say, wow, I think the person that's proactive and that's working on healing has that paradigm shift to say, wow, if anything, that gives me some grace and some lightness, that this isn't all just about me. But we all were dealt different hands, right? But it's our responsibility to say, what do we do with it in this life? I see people up against seemingly insurmountable things with very high ACE scores, with very much heaviness in their life, in their family's life for generations, overcome. So I think that that's just the difference between an excuse maker and people that don't make excuses, the people that their why is bigger than their excuses.
When you have the realization of what's motivating it, because you have more command over your life than you realize.
It would really help me out if you would like this episode and share it with a friend, a family member, someone that you know is struggling with trauma and or weight loss. Let's spread the message. You can heal. Your story matters. You are worth it. Popular Science magazine gave me this article. The title caught my attention right away. It's called When Childhood is Tough. So these two researchers in the 1980s and 90s started a public health investigation known as ACE, or Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. And they found that during childhood, when people have childhood trauma, it has adverse effects on your body for decades, sometimes for the rest of your life. And since I have had a lot of trauma in my childhood, I was like, well, read this. If it helps me, it'll help my mom, okay? It'll help a lot of other people, right? They found that people with childhood trauma would churn out a cocktail of inflammatory chemicals in response to even the smallest stressors, quote unquote smallest, who's to say what's small, right? And like an unexpected bill, or an argument with a spouse, or a loved one, or even a creak in the stairs. Now, I just want to know real quick, a small stressor to you might be something big to me, and a small stressor to me might be something big to you, you know? So we have to be compassionate and thoughtful about these things, okay? So they said small, but like I said, that's small to them, okay? They found that the people that have had childhood traumas would find themselves reacting to and dealing with these things, and less able to cope with the inevitable stressors of life, and churning out these inflammatory chemicals. Thus, it was setting them up for the potential to have autoimmune disease, heart disease, ulcers, chronic fatigue syndrome, cancer, irritable bowel, migraines, and asthma. I filmed the majority of this episode back in 2022 before I got my head bashed in by that truck and I was in the hospital. And I didn't mention that I had a lot of health problems. When I was overweight, I had a lot of health problems. And you know, I just didn't feel like myself, but constantly, you know, instead of getting it out and talking it out and working it out with God, between me and God and maybe a counselor, before I did all that, I was just getting pills, medications, and surgeries. I had my gallbladder out. I had IBS. I had cancer. I was in a wheelchair. I mentioned that briefly. But I had an appendix problem. I mean, it was constantly, I was in the doctor constantly. Chronic fatigue syndrome, depression, anxiety, bipolar. I mean, you name it, they pretty much diagnosed me with it. And, you know, yeah, I did have a lot of problems, and I still struggle today with anxiety and depression. And, you know, like right now it's rainy right now, so I tend to get down and tired and depressed during these rainy times. And for no reason, just because, you know, there's no sun. It's just the way that I'm built. And then, you know, not only that, but being an entrepreneur, you have anxiety, you have stress, and then not having a permanent place to live, you got that too. Not having the supports that I would like in my life. And that's why I created my coaching program. And if you hit your goal within the first 3 months, you get $500 cash back. I want to help you make the switch and get rich without being homeless. My name is Liberty, and I own I'm Worth It, Inc. 10% goes to Operation Underground Railroad, helping kids escape sex trafficking. Because you're worth it. If you would like one-on-one mentorship and a lot of love and support and encouragement from me, join my coaching program. The application is below. This is probably the most interesting part of this article. There was a doctor at Kaiser Permanente in San Diego who had a lot of patients who were losing collectively thousands of pounds. People were losing weight off his program, okay? But then people were just dropping out. Like they were like, no, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. And so he called them back and he interviewed them. I should say a bunch of people, like their team, interviewed these people, and they found that the common denominator between all of these people who dropped out of their program that they were helping lose the weight, they found out that these people had one thing in common. Every single one of them. They all had experienced a childhood trauma, either rape or molestation. It was some type of sexual trauma in their childhood. It is proven by science that when a person has a weight problem, it is because of trauma, and in most cases, it is a sexual trauma that occurred during childhood.
So just know that if you are having some sort of weight gain or loss that you're not inspired by, at least consciously, you might want to ask yourself, what is the motives? And don't just stop at 1 or 2 or 3 motives. Ask for 100 motives. Don't stop until you get them, and then log the ones that are charged up, that really bring up a tear of gratitude or a tear of awareness when you're doing it.
I just did an episode with Dr. John Demartini where he talks about from trauma to triumph, how he helped a woman heal right on the spot from her rape at the Breakthrough Experience. So check that out with Dr. John Demartini. What if the one thing your kids or parents are hoping and waiting for is you to do the work to grow with them? You owe yourself, and you owe it to everyone else. The worst thing that a person could do is to give up on themselves and their own greatness, because not only are you holding yourself back, you're holding back the people that you love the most.